All right, good Sunday morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with meteorologist Chita. It's go time.
It is go time. We're now nearing probably in the next 2 hours of landfall, potentially with Hurricane Ida.
Yeah, and there's been big developments here in the last couple of hours. We saw a period of rapid intensification that we have not seen in a long time. This thing dropped 50 millibars, an increase of 45 miles per hour in its sustained winds in like 12 hours.
And now we're nearing almost a Cat 5 strength. It looks like the latest track from the National Hurricane Center continues to have it remaining as a Category 4, but we're talking, really splitting hairs of 1 or 2 miles per hour of a difference from 155 to 157. So a really powerful hurricane setting up.
Yeah, the 9 a.m. update here has maintained its strength and wind speed, which is good. This is over the last 3 hours. We are now in hourly updates from the National Hurricane Center ahead of landfall. So the big changes here, it's a Category 4. It is a major hurricane and could possibly be one of the strongest storms to hit Louisiana on record.
Yeah, we have been talking a lot about Grand Isle, and that could be a direct landfall, a direct impact with Port Fourchon, if you're familiar with the Louisiana coastline, but it's going to be the entire southeast quadrant that's really going to be impacted, including New Orleans as it continues to push on land.
That's right. And, going forward up until landfall, which could be within the next 3 or 4 hours, we don't see this weakening.
Right.
And also, it could even continue to intensify because it's over very warm shelf waters. Even after landfall, Chita, this is really interesting, is that all of that area in southern Louisiana is very marshy, very swampy, so it still maintains heat energy. So it may not weaken very quickly at all.
I saw that with the track almost over the next 12 hours. Even tomorrow morning, we could be dealing with a Cat 1.
Yeah. And that's unusual over land for a duration of time. But we've got Hurricane Hunter aircraft that have been pretty much in the storm constantly. Look at some of these numbers here on the latest pass.
Right here, down to 928 millibars. And then you see that wind speed of 160. It's just unbelievable some of the data that's coming out of Hurricane Ida, especially as it's this close to landfall.
Right. Yeah, and this is these winds are at flight level, so they're up where the plane is at 160. These could be translating down to the surface, and if the Hurricane Hunter aircraft and the National Hurricane Center get some of the data from the drop sondes, which is what they drop out of the back of the aircraft to get the sampling all the way down to the surface, if it's mixing down, we could certainly see an upgrade on this.
I know. Isn't it incredible to think about those Hurricane Hunters? Yeah. I did fly with Hurricane Hunters in 2012. I saw the drop sondes that they use and how they get that data almost instantaneously. It's remarkable, and how we are getting that live from the Hurricane Hunters. I just think the entire process is so unreal.
And it's a grueling job because they are in that storm and they just go one after another. They go land, they get a little sleep and some food, and then they go right back up in the storm.
I know. I actually follow them on Twitter, not the sidebar, but they do have fun with it. So anyway, getting all the information, let's get back to Hurricane Ida.
Yeah, so rapid intensification, just to give you the actual definition of what that is, because we've been using that term a lot.
That is true.
Yeah, so it's an increase in the maximum sustained winds of around 35 miles an hour over a day's worth of time.
And I know you were watching some of those advisories since 4 o'clock yesterday, and you can see that's exactly what came into play. So let's see. Yeah, okay. So getting back to about 5 a.m. from 145 to now 150, and the forecast is 155. Yeah. And then it's the millibar. Look at that. Wow. Even from this morning, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Right. And this is just over 8 hours worth of time, right? So if we go back 12, 24 hours, it's dropped 50 millibars.
Right.
Yeah. So the correlation between the drop in pressure and the stronger wind speed is that partnership there, is that comparison. And we'll likely see it get just a tad stronger possibly as we get closer to landfall.
Looking at the satellite, you can see how impressive this is. You see that well-defined eye, the center of circulation, completely cleared out. You don't see that all the time. Just so rare to see how clean that is. And here, again, expected landfall around lunchtime today. Still that Port Fourchon, that Grand Isle. And Tim, you've done such a good job of mapping this out as we're at Cat 4 now. But winds are expected to become 155. We're at 150 now. That puts us, 7 miles per hour difference of a Category 5, the strongest that you can get on scale.
Right. And that jump from where we are now to a Cat 5 indiscernible. I mean, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference in the amount of damage that will occur. The storm surge will likely remain the same, 10 to 16 feet in some locations. And I know we were talking a little bit about this earlier, Chita, is that the satellite presentation is very ominous looking. It's starting to get that presentation of an annular hurricane, what you refer as a buzzsaw, a tire rolling down.
Yeah, you can totally see it.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. And it's that cleared out eye that's surrounded by a very thick line of highly active thunderstorms and convection, and we're actually seeing lightning in these, which is unusual in a tropical system.
Look how close, though, we are getting of landfall.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really close here. Still moving at okay, well, it's slowed down just a bit.
A
tad bit. It is moving at 14 miles per hour. This morning we were up to about 15, so not much of a difference there, but still starting to approach landfall. So we're still probably looking at that lunchtime hour. But look at these outer bands. You know, they've already been dealing with these on and off downpours even overnight through this morning.
And some of those outer bands, too, tropical systems are known for spawning a lot of severe weather and tornadoes.
Right.
So we've seen a tornado watch up in Alabama and on the outermost kind of wings of the system getting some of that spin in the atmosphere. But look at this. So it's amazing the technology we have. This is the KHOU satellite, and this has been stationed over the system. So it's been following it along. And the last couple of frames here, now the sun just came up a few hours ago, you can see like right down to the ocean surface. It's amazing.
No, it's amazing. I mean, just to see, obviously, how you can go right into the center of circulation, that eye, and still see how clear it is. Yeah,
and
it's
incredible. Really interesting, too, with the hurricane hunters, when they punch through that eye wall, they get into something and they see the stadium effect.
Well, let me tell you, in 2012 when we did, I was sick for the first 3 hours of our flight, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't too bad. We were in the eye.
Wow. Which storm was that?
Do. It was actually an eye storm, Isaac. It was Hurricane Isaac in 2012.
Interesting.
I know.
Wow. What an experience, though, to see that be in it. But nonetheless, it is impressive to look at, but also horrifying at the same time, because this is bringing a massive amount of destruction with it. So we're now within radar distance of New Orleans until it may go down when the strong winds pick up there. But we've got Lake Charles and Shreveport as well. Look at how well defined the eye wall is and the concentric eye walls that are expanding out.
And look how wide of a circulation. So these outer bands are already starting to push on shore, but this, 19, right. It looked really wide, but to see that 19 miles, that's impressive.
Yeah, and then you got this band here. So within that eye wall, you can get the skies clearing out like we saw on the satellite. Calm winds. A lot of times it gives people, if it's over land at that point, false sense of security that the storm's over. And then you get the back end of the eye wall and the winds shift direction. But you're going to find the strongest of the winds right here in the eye wall. And it looks like secondary eye walls are getting embedded here. So you're getting strong winds, a break in the winds going not calm, but not as strong, and then more strong winds here on the outermost bands.
So they're going to experience kind of waves of the impacts, right?
And look at where it is. It's just moving off to the northwest at 14. Going to make landfall here in like 3 hours, probably.
Oh, wow. I know. Just, you can think, especially because early last week, we were part of this forecast. It was so uncertain that we didn't know where Ida was going to end up traveling. We didn't know how strong Ida would be. But really, since about Wednesday, these models have been fairly accurate about location, about intensity. They were a little split on intensity. The GFS was a little bit lower, but still they've been relatively concise of the expected direction it was expected to take fairly early on. I mean, we were kind of in that forecast Monday and Tuesday, but by midweek we had a pretty good handle on this was heading towards Louisiana.
And that's a shout out to the computer modeling that's just leaps and bounds, because it is unusual to have so many models in such good agreement for such a long period of time, even so far out from the storm time frame.
Still had land interaction, still had plenty of you're right. I mean, before it even went over Cuba.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's been really remarkable. And the reason why we are covering this so heavily is because, we're not too far from New Orleans and Louisiana, but a lot of folks that live in Houston have family there, or they've moved there from New Orleans. And also the evacuees are seeking shelter in Houston.
So the evacuees now, this is on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Katrina did fall in the morning hours. This is obviously a midday, but it is an eerie feeling. Now, you can't compare these two hurricanes, and the expectation or, what potentially could happen. You can't even continue try to even compare those. But it does fall on the 16th anniversary of Katrina. It is in a similar location. Katrina was just a little further north, I believe, with that track. This is taking a little further south into the east. But still, some of these same areas. Now, we'll see all the levee protection, the upgrades that they did after Katrina. But yeah, so many people moved here after that. You could be watching, friends or family, maybe staying with you this weekend because our impacts are so little that yeah, that's right. That's why we are covering this so closely.
And speaking of Katrina, so Katrina at its highest intensity peak was a Cat 5.
That's right.
And then it went through something called an eye wall replacement cycle. So that led to it briefly weakening. It made landfall as a Category 3. But during an eye wall replacement cycle, it briefly drops the intensity. But once the secondary eye wall emerges, the wind field expands. And that's what happened with Katrina, why it impacted such a large area and why it pulled so much water into New Orleans.
Yeah, with this, the original forecast, though, the only thing that has also changed over the past 24 to 36 hours, originally, let's say late Thursday or really into Friday morning, it was expected to make landfall, but then quickly weaken and race off to the north. Now, it's expected to weaken, but not as quickly as really previously expected. We're expecting this to almost stay as a Cat 4 or potential Cat 3, so a major hurricane or higher, at least maybe over the next 10 hours or so.
Yeah, and tropical storm force winds could make it, 300-400 miles inland there. But there's another look at that eye, very ominous looking. It is closing in on the southeast coastline.
And if you're not familiar, I just thought I'd show you that Grand Isle is located just about here. You saw on the, here we go, a Grand Isle. Port Fourchon is just to the west of it. So that's we've been talking a lot about Grand Isle to Port Fourchon, and that's just because that's where we're expecting landfall over the next couple of hours.
Yeah, and all the bayou parishes are just getting inundated. The winds are moving onshore now, and that wind, especially on the east side of the storm, is coming onshore, so that's piling up the rain, and we're going to see, or the ocean, and we're going to see high storm surge values.
And that's really what storm surge is. It's taking all of that ocean water from the winds and pushing it on shore. And so some of the wave heights we've been talking about upwards of 12 to 15 feet.
Yeah, a story and a half of water coming your way. And a lot of these areas are extremely susceptible to this type of storm. Even a Category 1 would bring some storm surge values. Nonetheless, a major Category 4. Something interesting here, Chita. I love the tools we have. So this is radar out of Louisiana, out of New Orleans, and it's a tool on it called the velocity. And this tells us the speed of the winds and the direction. So the green shadings is air returning towards the radar site in New Orleans, and the red is going the opposite direction. So obviously you can see that spin in the atmosphere with the storm. But over here you can see barely there are some white shades, and that's kind of off our color table scale. And it's picking up wind speeds. Again, it's a little higher aloft off the ground, but radar beams saying that there's winds at least 125 miles per hour.
Which is incredible. So a lot of times, if you're watching in Houston right now, we'll use this to show you the velocity potentially with a tornado. So any type of rotation, and that's where the green and the red are coming from. Tim pointed this out just with around the eye wall there. So with Ida, how you're picking up the wind speeds around it. So you're still seeing that rotation. We don't pick up typically winds of this.
And another interesting fact here is that on our visible satellite, when you see a cleared out eye in an intense storm, sometimes you get these little mesovortices in the middle that spin around. I'm wondering if this is picking up on that. It's almost like a spin inside the larger spin. So that could certainly be that. That's a signature of a very strong tropical cyclone. And that could very well be that. Now, the outermost bands, Chita, is going to be the severe weather threat. So Storm Prediction Center says it's a possibility.
Let me tell you, the tornadoes that can spawn from these hurricanes, they can be really serious. They can be deadly just in themselves. I know during Katrina, actually it was my first year of meteorology school in Mississippi State, 2005. And some of the tornadoes that were spawned from Katrina and Rita, both of those, and here in Houston we're very familiar with Rita, were extremely serious all throughout portions of Mississippi, and that'll probably be the case. We're probably going to get these severe weather warnings over maybe the next day and a half or so, even from things that are directly related with Ida, but not even within the hurricane itself.
And even later on in its life cycle, these storms, as they move inland, are notorious for spawning severe weather outbreaks. So if you think about Florence in Virginia back in 2018, and then last year with Isaias in South Carolina and North Carolina, spawning numerous deadly tornadoes. So as this moves inland, the frictional component trying to slow down the storm, but it just spins up little circulations and you get tornadoes.
I was previously talking with Lauren Tallarico about the path that it's expected to take, even through portions of Tennessee. You know, after all the flooding that they just had about a week and a half ago, there are just so many different areas that as this storm takes its path, the cycle that it goes through, are going to be impacting millions more people, even after landfall.
Especially with the heavy rain threat, too.
Right.
Lots of flooding, possibly. So a lot of folks want to know, well, why has this intensified so much? Rapidly intensified. And we've had the warm sea surface temperatures, which are bathwater. They're in the upper 80s to near 90. That helps support the growth to a Category 4 storm. But it's also those warm waters that are down to a depth. We've got the ocean heat content extremely high.
Yeah, I mean, we usually talk about over 80 to 84 degrees. That's the fuel that a system needs to intensify. And we're looking at 87, 89, easily 90 degrees and low wind shear. You know, I thought it was really interesting on Friday when we looked at some of the upper level winds around Ida. And basically, as you worked closer because of the pattern that we're in, it was just completely calm around it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was absolutely nothing limiting the strength that this could take, and that's what happened. I mean, the forecast from Friday showed this happening, but as we've seen over the past 12 to 24 hours, that it sure took quite to it.
Right, and a lot of the models were showing like drops in the pressure down into the 920s, 930s.
Right, I remember you saying this.
And I remember looking at it and I was like, yeah, that's very intense. Like, can that really happen? And look at that.
And I do, you know, even since Thursday, we've been showing the GFS a lot, the American, and the European model a lot, and they were very similar with the path that they were going to take, you know, shifting this or that way, but the split was on the intensity and the timing of it. But the Euro's been really accurate. I mean, it had it as a Cat 4 making landfall by this evening. I mean, that's really accurate about 4 days out. So, you know, the forecast is holding true where we're expecting. It's just still to see this develop even, you know, as so. Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah. There's the broad view. Hey, Lauren, are you checking this out? I told her to, and everybody at home are watching too. But yeah, I mean, staying as a cat. Well, look at this. 1 a.m. We're still looking at a Category 1 hurricane.
Yeah.
Incredible. And then as it races to the north and to the east, but still impacting millions of people with the rain and the wind along with it through Monday afternoon as a tropical storm.
Yeah, that wind field's going to get bigger too as it gains latitude. What's also interesting to take note on this is that the Hurricane Center does expect it to gain even more intensity before landfall, 155. So we are borderline Cat 4, Cat 5. And this may even be one of the scenarios that we see, like the last Category 5 storm to hit the United States, Michael, back in 2018, was a high-end Cat 4 at landfall, and then reanalysis said, you know what, actually, I think it was a Category 5. So that's the last time U.S. had been impacted by a Cat 5.
Wow.
So we may see that same thing.
Just to see that, 155. I mean, at 157 miles per hour, we would have a Cat 5. I mean, that is just so close. Beyond.
Yeah, it's scary, for sure. And wind speed. So these are some wind gusts currently. We've got buoys offshore that were near the center. In fact, there was one buoy here, South Pass, but it looks like it's gone offline.
Oh,
So it was clocking wind gusts of over 120 earlier. Now it's probably been wrecked in those high waves, which are like 40 to 45 feet.
Oh, yeah. It's not going to, It
is just nuts. So those winds are extending north and onshore. And then going forward, Chita, there's the extent of the hurricane force winds going forward into this afternoon.
Right. 1:30, just making landfall. So, yeah, you know, we'll see if this is right. It says just before about lunchtime, you know, right around noon today will be the potential landfall, but 1:30. And then, with tropical storm force conditions really all across pretty much the area.
And then even the Category 2 winds making their all the way up to New Orleans. And then by tonight, 6:30, Slidell area, Lake Pontchartrain, getting Category 2 force winds. We're talking 96 to 110 miles per hour there. And even by tomorrow morning, very early in the morning hours, tropical storm force winds of at least 60, extending up into portions of Mississippi.
I know. That really, I mean, the amount of people that are going to be in the path of this, you know, potentially deadly hurricane is incredible. And storm surge, you know, we've talked a little bit about storm surge, how, you know, storm surge is basically wind just pushing all of that ocean water on top of the land, and that's what we're already seeing, even from this morning. Some of the reports that were coming in, they're already dealing with that, and it'll peak later today. But let's see, what is this? 7 o'clock this evening. Look at that, still hasn't moved a whole lot, and it's in the path.
And yeah, it's a long duration of an onshore wind. So all the bayou parishes like Terrebonne, Lafourche, Plaquemines, the southern tier of Jefferson Parish, you're talking storm surge values here, unsurvivable. 12 to 16 feet.
Yeah. So you can see everywhere here in this pink and the red color, that's where we're looking at, 12 plus feet, which is incredible. And of course the orange showing the 7 to 11, but those were areas that were told to evacuate.
Yeah, and most of them are mandatory evacuations, but there's always folks that stick it out.
They can ride it.
Unfortunately. So, and this is going to continue to occur here over the next 12 hours or so, maybe even a little bit longer, a long duration event for these areas. And we're going to have some pretty interesting images.
I know, but even Homa, is in that orange to red. I mean, still talking upwards of 12, potentially 12 plus feet with that storm surge. So, I mean, even areas that are just a little bit more inland are still bracing for that as well.
And why we hit this so hard, storm surge, is because half of all hurricane deaths occur from storm surge.
Right.
It floods inland, and a lot of times it doesn't recede all that quickly, and you can't get to resources, you can't get help if you need it. So that's why mandatory evacuations are in play. On top of that, the heavy rainfall, 10 to 15 inches, Chita, on top of storm surge. This whole area is going to be underwater in a lot of cases.
We have been watching our sister station go, wall to wall. It does bring back that feeling from Harvey, just where, the forecast is showing out and then it is playing out as expected. And it's just, there's nothing you can do at this point. I mean, at this point, all the plans, all the actions people have taken, that's
it.
That's it.
Time ran out.
The time has run out. I mean, now we only have a couple of hours, and we'll be looking at potentially what it does.
Right.
Yeah.
And
but 10 to 15 inches on top of that 12-foot stretch.
And it could be even more than that. Some of the locally heavier downpours with those bands coming on in. Talking about that radar again, we saw that there was that one band sort of stretching to the north, but a signature of an annular hurricane is a lack of those moisture bands. So that could be something that does limit the rainfall, at least on the outer skirt.
Yeah, which would include areas like New Orleans.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see how that plays out, though. But want to talk about what's going on in the rest of the Atlantic?
So I do think this is important, though, because so many people watching right now in Houston saying, okay, you know what? We did dodge this. We are on the dry side. We are on the clean side. We have so much activity out in the Atlantic right now. We were expecting an above average season. September the 10th is the official peak of hurricane season. So we still have a good 3 to 4 weeks where we're expecting the tropics to remain pretty hot. Yeah.
And we've already had 2 major hurricanes. So if you look back at climatology and see what other seasons up through this date have had 2 major hurricanes, and there are 4 seasons, 2 of which are very familiar to the Gulf Coast and most of the United States. 2005.
Right. Hurricane Rita, which obviously
and
we're very...
last year, 2020.
Oh, well, 2020, last year was just off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was.
So, and we've got 2 tropical depressions out here that could get the next 2 names, are expected to, Julian and Kate, and then 2 waves. One that's just kind of hanging out off the coast of Virginia, and then another one here that has much better chances in the main development region of developing, 70% chance now. That could either be Larry or Mindy, and we'll see what happens.
We will see. I know,
Absolutely.
we will see. But it is, we were expecting an above average storm season, and we are here. So over the next 3 weeks, we do have to keep our guard up. We probably will see something develop and come close once again.
It happens.
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
But that's the latest there. We are getting the hourly updates from the National Hurricane Center. So if anything drastically changes, if we do get that bump up to a Category 5, we will certainly be back to share that information with you. But until then, if you are watching from southeastern Louisiana, or you have family there, or you evacuated from there, our thoughts are seriously with you, because this is a pretty large event that's going to be impactful for years to come.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
Take care.